Hello and welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour, the weekly bridge to the future of the piano tech community. I'm David Anderson.
And I'm Ethan Janney. And we're here to ask great questions, and then we'll shut up and listen to some of the authorities, experts, and most outstanding personalities in our little world of pianos.
So, put on your best set of headphones and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. Get yourself settled. We'll get started in a minute once folks have been, all the stragglers have been entered the room here. Maybe give it like 60 seconds. So it's good to see everybody, and hope to see as many of you as we can at the convention that's starting next week on Thursday. All day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, with a few breaks in the middle of the day. Got a couple of really cool sponsors. We've got the piano book, and we've got Schiedermeyer Celeste as well, and we've got a bunch of really
the Celeste that literally
Celeste,
every orchestra uses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, they're going to give a little talk during Paul McNulty's, at the beginning of Paul McNulty's lecture too. So that'll be interesting to hear.
Awesome.
So yeah, so I'll let a few more people in, and then we'll give a little bit of an intro to the session today. So give me 1 second. And master. Okay, so just to remind you where you're at today, you're at the Piano Tech Radio Hour. If you're joining us for the first time on Facebook or YouTube, we are a session that brings in piano industry experts and interesting folks to share stuff with you on a weekly basis every Saturday. This program is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online educational resource that offers you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at www.pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. And today's guest is a very intriguing fellow by the name of Thomas Strange. And he's actually been referred to us by one of our esteemed previous guests and also lecturers, Sally Phillips. And Thomas Strange has presented numerous lectures, concerts on early piano development, is a builder and restorer of earlier keyboard instruments. He's author of an article on the life of early square pianoforte builder John Geib, was published in 18th-Century Music, March 2010. Some interesting things about him is that he has an extensive background in material science, author of 43 patents. Wow, that's pretty exciting. I can't even imagine having one patent. Oh, let me let a few more people in here. If you folks who are co-hosts, go ahead and just let people in as they join. Yeah, and it appears that he's specialized in things like capacitors and aluminum electrolytics. So we don't have any, a lot of us are multi-talented here as piano technicians, so there may be people who have questions about that feature of your work, but we probably won't go too deep. And you've also been inducted into the St. Jude Medical Patent Hall of Fame in 2005, and you chair of the Services Board of Directors for several institutes. So we've got with us a fascinating, multi-talented individual who we hope to get to know a little bit better. But really, I think what you want to talk about is your musical instrument museum. So tell us a little bit about that musical instrument museum and where it's located, and just the basics. We'll dive into deeper questions after you give a short intro.
Well, certainly. So, I'll just set the story up. Back in 2008, I had been asked to go to the Greenville County Museum of Art to just talk about my interest in early keyboards. And it was one of those events where I thought, perhaps 15 or 20 people would be interested in such a thing if we're lucky, So I planned for a small group, and I brought the keyboards over, and lo and behold, over 200 people showed up for this thing. They were dripping off the balconies, and I was just astounded by how much interest there was. So I continued to collect. I had made contacts with a number of schools through that event, and so they began to send students over, and the interest was clearly growing. So the question that was posed to me was, Tom, what happens to this wonderful collection that you've already assembled after you're gone? And I thought it was a really great question. And the answer that I came up with was, why don't we make this something of a gift to the city of Greenville, and we'll bring it in and we'll set up a museum in Greenville and allow people from the public to come, and maybe people from other parts of the country would enjoy coming too. So we cast about for a place, and as it turned out, in early 2017, a nearly ideal spot opened up. One of the museums that was on Heritage Green, which is in Greenville, where all the museums are, the Art Museum, the Country History Museum, the library, the Children's Museum, we're all kind of in this one space together. And this particular building was going to open up. Bob Jones University's Museum and Gallery was going to go somewhere else. And so we made a proposal to the county. The proposal was accepted. We spent about 6 months renovating the space. And in early 2018, we opened the museum. Initially, we were called the Carolina Music Museum. We had named ourselves that so that the county would understand what we were trying to do, and that it was, had local interest and so on. And so, local interest was quite high. Through our first year and a half, things were going pretty much as we had expected. And then something unexpected took place, which was a very, very large collection of musical instruments, world-class collection that was in Boston. It was the collection of Marlowe Sigal. Marlowe and I knew each other when we were both collectors, and we respected each other. We would meet at conventions and such. And so Marlowe passed away without a good plan for his collection. And as I began to talk with the family, it became clear that we might be the solution for the Sigal family. And the key there was, would they financially support bringing the collection here, and what it would take to kind of, make it work for Greenville. They said yes. We agreed to rebrand our name, and so we became the Sigal Music Museum, which is how we will be known going forward. And now we've gone from a very, very good private collection to a world-class collection of keyboards, woodwinds, guitars, and other musical instruments.
Wow.
Yeah, quite interesting. I think I might actually just do this right now. I'm going to pull up the website here just to kind of give people a taste. Very, very beautiful website you have too, and shows the beauty of the instruments that you have on location there. Is there anything specific that you would highlight about the website itself, or things that people might find interesting to check out while we're on this session? Or
So one of the most valuable parts is that there's a newsletter section of the website, and every month we put out a newsletter that's updated, that tells you kind of what we're doing. At the moment, I have the gems of the Marlowe Sigal collection on display. So it's called Sensational Sigal, and there are some wonderful things. If you've ever wondered about the historical background for keyboard instruments, we pretty much have everything you need to see right there in the museum. So it makes a great visit. And now that we're kind of coming out of the COVID times and people are going to be able to mix, I'm looking forward to hosting people coming in. We will have this exhibit up through at least the end of this year and into 2022 to give people a chance to really see what's going on.
Wow. So this unbelievable gift whatever grace from life itself happened when? 2018?
So in
You,
2000,
you,
in 2019, I had begun talking with the family in January.
wow.
By May, we closed the deal. And so, just in numbers, the numbers are astounding. Over 85 pianos and harpsichords from that collection, over 600 woodwind instruments,
Jeez.
several dozen.
From
Are-
from how many centuries are the woodwind
so
instruments?
the earliest instrument on display right now is from 1575.
Oh
Uh,
my
im-
God.
Imagine Shakespeare is 11 years old when this is made. And then one of the neatest parts of this collection, and quite frankly of mine as well, is that many of the instruments still play, and they still play very well. So,
And so do you when when herd immunity occurs, are you going to have live performances with these instruments, some of them?
there will be certainly starting in September. We'll resume the concert series that we had going on before. But this summer, I expect to be able to do some limited seating for people, and then if you follow us, we're currently recording all 32 of the Beethoven sonatas on modern piano, and many times on the early piano that's period appropriate for that period of Beethoven's life. Zachary Hughes is doing that, doing a wonderful job. So you can dial in as free. You can watch every week.
What's the artist? Who's the artist?
Zachary Hughes.
And
yes, go
he's
ahead.
doing it. He's doing it on both on a modern piano and
Right.
an appropriate period piano.
That's correct. So
Wow, what modern piano is he using?
we're using a Steinway D that Sally graciously worked on it for us.
I forgot you got the badass of all time down there.
It's now a great piano. When it came in, it needed a lot, as some of you know. Sometimes they're a little bit abused. This one had some inappropriate things done, but Sally put it back to rights.
This is why pianos are so insanely technician artisan dependent, which then, you know already probably.
Yes, and then for the early pianos, I'm kind of the resident expert at this time.
Wow.
I am looking to bring up younger people into this field. I will just tell you right away, it can be lucrative and it's very rewarding.
Wow. So you know what? I'll bring the site back up real quick here, because I've noticed we can listen to some of the instruments. So let me do that real quick.
And
okay, so let's check this out. If I click on this piano, so this is a recording of this actual piano, right?
Right. This is a harpsichord that you're about to click on.
Yeah, this is awesome, actually. I mean, that's beautiful. Like you said, it's not just like, tune. Oh, hey, look at this piece of history.
Did you tune it?
I do tune it, yes.
Oh my God, it sounded good. We're all like these big rabbit-eared, bat-eared nerds out here.
Well,
that sounded good, man.
Let me tell you, before we move to something else, let me tell you just a bit about that harpsichord. And it's on display, and you'll want to come see it. That harpsichord was the wedding present from King George III to his new bride Charlotte when she came from Mecklenburg, Germany.
Wow.
And then, even more significant, perhaps, in 1764, when the 8-year-old Mozart and his sister Nannerl were brought to court, that was the harpsichord that they played for the king and the queen. and the courtiers. So a very well-known harpsichord. It was when the Queen died in 1818. She had a number of unmarried daughters that needed money, and so all of her possessions were sold off, including this harpsichord. It went to a 14th century house in England, more of a castle than a house, really. And then in the 1980s, when times were tough in the UK, they quietly sold it to Marlowe Sigal, who bought it and brought it to Boston.
Wow.
Shortly thereafter, the house burned, and all the newspapers in England carried the story that Queen Charlotte's harpsichord has been lost. It was burned in the fire. And Marlowe had to write back and say, well, not so much. I've got it in Boston. So now it's in Greenville.
Listen, the harpsichord shocked me, the sound of it. It's so powerful. It's got such a unique resonance to it. No wonder all these humans in history just loved it, you know. Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing. Other harpsichords don't sound like that, do they? Who did you do the restoration on that?
I did all the work on that. Wow. Yes. Now I will tell you that it was still in pretty good shape. So it didn't need a huge amount, but I restrung it in Stephen Burkett wire. Stephen is a professor and researcher in Canada who has come up with the correct wires for the time.
Yeah, he's published articles in our Piano Technicians Journal. He's well known.
He's a good man, and his wire now really brings out the singing qualities of these instruments. And so it's curious. Later today, I'll be back at the museum recording with Geib Smallwood. We're actually going to use one of the other huge harpsichords at the museum, a harpsichord by Tascan, 1769. So a French double harpsichord, because that's the sort of music that we're going to be working on later today. Lots of fun.
Wow. And did you grow up somewhere close to here, to Greenville?
I grew up in Columbia, but I got here as quick as I could.
And where is Greenville in South Carolina?
Let me cut in real quick here, David, just to let people know. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, we're going to sign off that live stream, but there should be a link in the chat. You can come join us on the Zoom call if you just click the link and sign up. And all right, I'll just pass it back to you, David. Feel free to continue.
Okay. Yeah, Greenville, where is it and what does it look like and what's this kind of the setting?
So Greenville is in the upper west part of South Carolina. It's pretty much on a line between Atlanta and Charlotte. And the upstate is an area of about 1.3 million people. Greenville is a wonderful destination city to come to. We have a very active restaurant life. There's lots of things to do inside and outside. Of course, there's some wonderful museums to come visit, but there's other things to do as well. So it's no longer the best kept secret. Greenville will appear in just about every travel journal you look at these days because it's become so well known.
Wow.
Now we're going to be having Paul McNulty as an instructor for the upcoming convention, and he's someone who recreates and sort of reverse engineers some of these period instruments. Are you familiar with him or his work? Have you met, or is that?
I am familiar with Paul, and while we haven't been able to meet in person, we have been able to meet online. He does some wonderful work, and his instruments are in major universities and concert halls all over the world.
Yep. Yeah, I heard two of his instruments for the first time 2 years ago, and I was literally brought to tears, shocked, whatever. His work is beyond.
So one of the wonderful things about making a recreation is that it takes some of the wear and tear off of an antique. And as much as we enjoy the antiques, and I enjoy making the ones that we have chosen play to play well.
Yeah.
With the older instruments, it's something every time. With a newer instrument, you might be able to focus on the concert rather than on scrambling to get things ready before the concert. So,
Right. Right.
from a conservative standpoint, we love folks that want to build reproductions.
Oh man, that's great. He's a fantastic human being as well, and his show that he did, what was it, Ethan, 6 weeks ago or something like that?
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
Was fantastic. So this is our first foray into like taking period piano stuff kind of to another level of seriousness. So we're very grateful to speak with you.
Well,
and,
so as everybody knows, with the early pianos, there's hardly anything inside of them that you can order. It's all to be looked at, and then you make it custom at the time. So a certain amount of woodworking skill is involved, and a regular piano technician, largely when they come in the house, they sort of expect to find a piano that could still be described as being that. When we get in front of these old instruments, we're not at all shocked that absolutely nothing works. That here it is. We kind of like them when they're undisturbed. It's easier to work on an instrument that has never had an intervention than if it has had anything done to it. So, the more undisturbed, the better. And then, our job is to make sure that whatever we do is reasonably reversible, and that we kind of set it up for the next guy 100 years from now who will say, that Tom Strange, what was he thinking about? Blah, blah, blah. And then they go and apply the new knowledge to these instruments.
That's one of the tough things about conservation work. I mean, I'm not saying from personal experience so much, but from knowing people who work on it, it can be, I guess, a bit nerve-wracking. It
can. Yeah. And yet, if you do it right, you've kind of got a team of people that are looking at things with you, and so you're never out there on your own. Until everybody agrees, okay, it's time to. This one needs the soundboard out. It's a grand. We're going to have to drill out the wooden dowels, and I'll tell you what, you've got a 225-year-old piano under your hands and an electric drill. That is just not a comfortable place to be. But as the surgeon, you've got to do it so that when you get finished, no one can tell what you just did.
Right. So I'm just, I know we're here primarily to talk about pianos, but I think it will be interesting just to hear the quality of the musicianship of the people who are playing them, and the actual instruments. Like you said, they're playable, they're beautiful instruments. The saxophone solo is really fun. Little beautiful saxophone solo a la John Coltrane there.
Yeah, man.
Clearly,
and recorded incredibly well, because I'm listening to it through no speakers at all, hardly, and it still sounds good.
Let's check out this banjo real quick. Yeah, okay, go ahead, Tom. What do you got to say?
Well, I was just going to say, the intriguing part with the saxophones is that we have the full saxophone family by Adolph Sax from the mid 1850s, and that's pretty cool. We have a clarinet by his father in 1820, and then this little sopranina saxophone by his son. So we have 3 generations of the sax family represented in the exhibit right now.
And these are French instruments?
These are.
All right, let me hit this banjo and then we'll get back
Okay.
to some chatter here. Incredible. You've got like
Wow.
the Southern, it's really awesome that you not only have the sort of global, historical, European centered instrumental history, but you've got some Southern flavor there.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
A neat American banjo from 1885.
Wow.
It's really great to hear them, in their original state. It's nothing quite like it.
So do you have dedicated recording facilities at the museum or recording equipment, or do you just hire somebody you love and are comfortable with?
So we do have dedicated recording equipment. Several grants have helped us put things together.
Wow.
So we can do a pretty sharp job of making the kind of recordings that we need. If it's something that's even more elaborate, then I have friends in Greenville that we can call in.
I'll bet you do.
Yeah.
And this sounds like paradise for you.
It's a good gig.
Yes. Wow.
What kind of organizations are supporting this with grants and funding? Is it a difficult process, or have you found it relatively easy to find funding?
Well, ease is a relative term. We have a dedicated person who's our development VP that is always working on the next grant. But the South Carolina Humanities, the Metropolitan Arts Council here have been very good. Several foundations, are always online to help us out, and there's operational dollars, just to run the lights and keep things going, plus the specialty things for doing a lecture series or restoring a particular instrument. We can often get a grant to go do that.
I'll take us into left field very briefly here, and I know you have a little bit of a technology background. Are you familiar with the sort of NFTs that are coming along with the blockchain technology, kind of digital ownership or digital artifacts and things like that? Is that something you're familiar with, keeping an eye on, being a collector?
So I'm peripherally watching that. I haven't gotten involved enough to know, and say that yes, let's talk freely about it. But clearly it's something that's the next thing I saw, where on the visual art side, they've been selling art for enormous sums of money. And the neat part is, it's like Bitcoin. Once created, that it's unique. It's no one else is going to have anything quite like it.
Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if this down the line goes anywhere into that realm. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Already in progress.
But also maybe a little bit of a tangent, but I'm finding it very interesting. I want to hear about it. And also just add, we do have one question in the chat we'll get to, but everybody else, feel free to bring in your questions, comments, whatever you want to lead the discussion. I'm curious to bring in, your experience, both sort of in what you would call, I guess, electronics or electrical engineering or something like this. Does this have anything to do with your work today, and your work with patents and, I guess, ownership of intellectual property or anything like that?
So there's a huge amount of engineering that goes into making any of these instruments work. Much of it is what we would call, mechanical engineering. But then as you begin to look for ways to do the conservation and to prevent corrosion, one of my expertises is in corrosion science. I learned a great deal about how to have controlled corrosion for various things that we were doing to make implantable medical devices smaller. And so if you know how to control it, you know how to stop it. And one of the things that you often have to do with a piano is, how to deal with, you've heard the term verdigris, how to deal with that. Most people think that these are conditions that are just deadly and there's no getting around them. Actually, with the right steps, if the instrument warrants it, there are things that you can do to reverse a good deal of that. So, you kind of science your way out of the problems. And I found it wonderfully refreshing to work on cutting edge technology in the daytime and then go home and turn the clock back 200 years and work on their technology problems.
Very fascinating. All right, I want to get to the questions in the chat.
All right.
Because people are curious about things. All right, Terry Chamberlain asked, and this is somewhat related to what we're talking about, how did you get started in instruments?
That was my question as well.
Okay. Well, it's always a multiple vector kind of thing, isn't it? How do any of us get started? But I can tell you that I had an interest in the piano since as young as I can remember. I just wanted to understand how that worked and to be able to play it somewhat. And I worked myself up to the point where I can play piano bar at the Steak and Ale and have a reasonable night of it. But I wasn't going to be a concert pianist, so that was cool. I got some proficiency. In the 1960s, electronic music was starting to be something that we were talking about. Switched on Bach came out. I considered that to be just remarkable and a sea change in the way we were looking at Bach. And so, while I was at the University of South Carolina studying physics, one of the professors had built one of those little Zuckerman clavichord kits, and he had it in his office. And I just thought, wow, I want to get to be able to do something like that, to create your own instrument. You're 21 years old, you're impressionable. And so when I graduated, I built a little harpsichord back in 1980. One of the kit harpsichords, one of the better ones. And it's still with me. And if you come to the museum, in the lobby, there it sits with a sign that says, "Play Me." And it gets played pretty much every day. Everybody comes in, and that's where they start.
Wow.
That's incredible.
And what kind of a building it is? Just very quickly, what's the facility like?
So the facility is cool. It is the core of the old Coca-Cola bottling facility in Greenville. So it was built in 1930. It was thoroughly renovated in 2005 to 2007. So it has state-of-the-art climate control, nice lighting. It's a beautiful building, and it's a beautiful experience as you come in.
Wow. So such a gift to get that from the university that had already built it up and tricked it out and spent all that money, huh? Jeez.
Yes. So it was really good for us as a next home. Yes, Ethan.
Yeah, I just want to go back on. I think it's really, I love the sort of theme around what you're doing in terms of integrating this thought about technology but also thinking about it historically. I mean, I love that you're excited about switched on Bach and also excited about Bach and, excited about, electrical engineering and also excited about, what was the state of engineering back in the 1800s, 1900s. And I think personally, that's my attitude, that I really appreciate kind of not being isolationist about various periods of history, whether it's today or yesterday. But there's value in that, people who kind of exclusively look at a specific era. But I just wanted to highlight that. I think that's a super valuable perspective that you have, and we can benefit from.
And I will just say that if you're a student of history, then pianos kind of do a better job than almost any other piece of furniture in telling that story, because
documenting the history. Absolutely.
Not only documenting, but from the design and style of the piano, it can be very, very period specific. And it was, today, the piano has not really changed a lot in the last 100 years, but in the early parts of the piano, it was changing, not only yearly, but monthly.
Wow.
And then occasionally things would happen, politically and historically, that would be reflected in the pianos. I'll tell you one story. So we have a couple of pianos in the museum who I know exactly who built them, but there is no name on the name board. And the reason is a great little story. They were built in 1829 or 1830, and we had passed a tariff in the United States, which in the South we called the tariff of abominations, because it made it very difficult to buy anything from Europe or England. The tariffs were 25 to 50%. It was actually a tariff that no one had ever meant to get passed, but they crossed their signals and Congress managed to pass it. And so if you were a manufacturer in the North, well, it was a great boon to you, because now everybody in America had to buy American-made goods. But if you're a planter in the South, the way the economy worked was that you sold your cotton or other agricultural goods overseas. They sent you money. You bought their case goods, and the process just rinsed and repeated. Now we couldn't do that. And so hostility against the North, flashed. And although it was 30 years before the Civil War, if you had something in your house that said New York on it, well, that was just a terrible thing.
Wow.
So a little cottage industry crept up to carefully come in and sponge the name away. So these pianos would be made in New York and sold into the South, and then the guy would come in and remove the name and the offending term New York. And so, they're a special little breed of piano, but here it is wearing its history. I think that's pretty cool.
That is beyond cool, into a whole other zone of knowing that kind of separation 30 years before it got to violence.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I got another question here from the chat from CLS. I'm not sure what those are the initials for, but the question is, can Mr. Strange speak a bit about the Hawkins uprights? Is that something you can speak to?
I certainly can. So there are 3 surviving Isaac Hawkins upright pianos. We have 2 of them. That's an enormous treasure. And the second one that Marlowe acquired was one where a piano technician was about to take out the toolbox and really do some mischief, and Marlowe convinced him, sell it to me and don't try to restore it. So these were among the very first upright pianos. And if you look at it back in history, it's kind of like the idea of an upright is in the air. We're not sure how to do it yet. The Hawkins pianos are particularly spectacular in that they're just absolutely filled with innovation. Almost everything that he did was the first time it's ever been done that way.
And when were they made?
Starting in 1799, and he built them up through about 1808. His initial pianos were made in Philadelphia, and sold in that part of the country. He got a legacy in London, and so in 1803 he went back to claim his legacy, and he would return to America later in his life, but he continued to build these uprights in London. Some of the innovations, they're smart enough, but not quite complete to call them something that fully caught on. But he did have the first full iron frame. It's a composite frame, but go ahead.
He's the first guy ever?
He's He's the first guy ever to put a full iron frame on a piano. So all the tension is across the
I
iron
never
frame.
heard that before in 45 years
The
of looking at pianos and piano history and all of that
okay.
stuff.
The soundboard is suspended. There's an iron nut. The bridge, of course, is wood, but the nut is iron. And with just a little more forethought, I think the thing would have really caught on. What it did, though, was it allowed the piano to take all the tension without all the wood that's normally in them. And so these pianos are truly portable because they're incredibly light for what they are. And they can still work, and it's not a bad sound.
Wow.
So in terms of, people see instruments out there, and I think sometimes it can be relatively confusing whether do I have, especially to the customers, it's baffling, right? Do I have something of value here that needs to be preserved versus is this just something to put in the dumpster? And like you said, there can be these situations where you have a technician who's just going to go to town on something and just start exploring, and that can be a terrible thing. Do you have any tips? You got a wide audience here, throughout the globe. Any tips on, like, if you come across an instrument, how to know whether it might be something of value, how to know whether we should contact you and say, does the museum want to acquire this? Any tips and tricks for people out there encountering instruments?
Well, I will say that everyone that I have met over the last 30 years in the conservation and curatorial work like this has always been happy to answer those sort of questions and kind of kibitz and help people, particularly piano technicians, understand what they've encountered and then what does it mean. A vast number of the late large American square pianos are still out there. I know how everybody kind of groans when they're brought into the room, and it's like, tune this. And to the normal public, anything that we do, I've had a piano on the workbench, the soundboard is out, there isn't a string in sight, and they come in and they say, "Oh, are you tuning it?" And it's like, well, yeah, after I put a soundboard back in and restring it, I probably will tune it. But right now we're deep in the middle of something else. So it's we have to kind of smile and have a little bit of patience. But John Watson, from Colonial Williamsburg, the people at the major museums are usually very happy to talk. I'm always happy to just talk to people about what they've got. Acquiring instruments is something that we all have to be very, very careful with because they take up room and square footage is dollars. So, we all have to look at it in terms of can I ever really show this? What story would I tell with this? And, am I already able to tell that story? So, if the answer to all of those is no, and if you got a significant instrument, and this happens fairly regularly, then we work to try to acquire it. I'm in Greenville. If it's in New York, I know that it's going to be $1,000 just to send it down. So again, the dollars and cents have to kind of add up.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense.
And I was asked at a recent lecture, what is the greatest risk to these early pianos? And of course, I'm sitting there with my curator hat on, and I'm thinking, bugs and water and maybe fire and maybe some sort of human intervention. And then one of my other piano buddies said, "No, Tom, it's the dumpster. The biggest danger to early pianos is they're thrown out because they're considered irrelevant." So I really invite people to ask those questions first. And let's see if we can eliminate the dumpster as the first answer.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different frame of reference. It's really a challenge for me to tell you, Tom, because I've almost, I hate to tell you this, dismissed it as like, well, that's not the modern grand sound, so it's It's not what I like, you know. And that's a very limited perspective I'm seeing right now. So
Well,
I appreciate you challenging me, brother.
when you find yourself in front of a properly maintained early instrument, it can be revealing in
Yeah.
what sound is coming from it. But it isn't a Steinway. It isn't a big Yamaha. It's not a big, Blautner or Busendorfer. It is its own thing.
Yeah.
And typically, it's gonna the compromises that it's made, a thinner treble and an overall weaker sound also allows some subtlety to come through. So Zach was recording, one of the most famous piano sonatas of all time, the Moonlight Sonata,
Right.
in C sharp minor, and written in 1801, and he's doing it on a Volter piano that you'll be able to hear this in the coming weeks. And the music that comes through is so revealing and so clear that when you then hear it on the big Steinway, which is all, Sally Phillips has done a great job, and it's also a wonderful instrument, but it's just a different sound altogether.
Wow.
And so it's a little like taking, Bob Dylan and his acoustic sound and then feeding it into the sound system that, the Who was using.
Wow.
It's not bad. It's just, it changes it in remarkable ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And one thing, we're also going to have David Clavins at the upcoming convention, who's kind of on this other end of the spectrum, like, pushing the limits of the piano technology, not necessarily into electronics, but kind of design and doing something different and
That's right.
creating something odd and new. And I think what I took away from, we interviewed him a week or two ago, and there's different sounds, like David said, there's the modern grand piano sound, it's a sound, and then Clavin's pianos have their own sound, and these period pianos have their own sound, and they all have their place. And it's actually interesting to consider even people going back and trying to incorporate some of these older instruments into newer music, composing music that takes these sounds and make them relevant for today. Anyways, I spoke a lot. I just thought it was interesting, a thought.
Yeah, I quite agree. So, we didn't have any fear about doing that, like in 1960, if you remember, Walk Away Renee or Clouds with the little Baldwin harpsichord running all the way through it. The Beatles used it. We kind of fell away from that a little bit, but that was all good stuff of taking the sound and exploring it and working with it. So Clavins has done some wonderfully innovative things, I enjoy talking about it. If I were to dial us back to 1830, the concept of what is a piano was a couple of dozen different things, and they were all comfortable with that. It wasn't that the piano had one sound. Take us to to the year 2000, and it's like every piano is a red Toyota Corolla, and if that's what you want, you're in good shape, because that's what you're going to get.
I got a question here in the chat. David, yep. Did you have something first?
Just to say that when I heard that harpsichord today, the recording of the harpsichord over small little speakers, it struck me. It really did. I've never been satisfied listening to an original period instrument. I don't really feel like I have. And a lot of harpsichords, a lot of pianofortes. And that recording was singular in my experience. So,
well, thank you, Dave.
I'm fascinated to hear this 32 sonata record on the modern. And then, did you tune and prepare the 1801 piano?
So I did. We're featuring a Johann Stein piano from 1784 for the very early stuff. Stein is the father of the Viennese forte piano. and this is one of his best pianos. So we have that. We have the Volter and Son, which is a little bit later. And then for the late Beethoven, I've got an 1824 Johann Schann's piano. Beethoven helped sell Schann's pianos to all of his pupils and patrons because he got a little kickback from the company. So he knew Schann's pianos very, very well, and they're extremely well suited to the work of Beethoven.
So, two questions. One, what temperament do you use? Number two, is it the same for all the pianos?
So it's not the same for all pianos. The best temperament for that early 1800 I find is Young's. It's comes as close to the mean tone temperament, which is not equal temperament, by the way. And Beethoven made use of that. When he would change keys, he's looking for those subtle differences that those temperaments will give you, so that it truly does take on a different flavor when you hear it in that key. If you tune everything to equal temperament, you kind of lose some of that. So I'm relatively careful. I also know that I've been to any number of harpsichord concerts where they had this special temperament and they had tuned it, and the whole time I'm just thinking somebody ought to get up and tune that harpsichord. That is just terrible. So you can take it too far, but that's what I like to do. And
So,
as Sally will know, anymore with the apps that you can get on your telephone, you have hundreds of temperaments available to you, right there.
yeah,
You can set the the middle octave and a half, and then work the rest of the piano very quickly.
yeah.
So we'll be wrapping up here in about 5 minutes.
All
We
right.
put some links in the chat there for people.
Wow.
Again, if you want to join our convention coming up in just a few days, Thursday, and feedback form. And if you want to sign up to access these radio hour sessions each week, you can join there. I want to get to this question we got left in the chat here, and
Okay.
that came about square grands from Chuck Becker. Do you ever deal with square grands? Any experience there?
Well, the answer would have to be yes, but it's always a little more than that. So the very early square pianos are sometimes called square grands because people just like to put that term together. But the little squares are hardly grand, meaning large. They're actually quite small. And the term square grand was coined by John Dunham in 1851 when he's bringing out his version of some of the first overstrung pianos. And he used it broadly in the newspaper ads, and it was picked up such that any piano is quote a square grand. Typically, I'm less interested in the pianos after 1860, simply because that there's a lot of them. When you're finished with them, the sound is more nearly what you would expect to find from a modern piano. And so, we kind of tend to focus on the pianos made before 1860, but some of those are quite large.
Thank you for that. So as we wrap up here in the last couple of minutes, is there anything that you hope to share with everyone that we missed out on? Is there anything you want to share about how they can support the museum? Any benefit for people spreading the word or doing anything special to make sure you can continue to do what you do and share it in the way you want to share it?
So it is always wonderful if you will talk about these institutions and talk about us. The COVID has been very hard on everybody in the arts, and so as we're coming out of this, we're looking for all the help that we can get, and everybody else is as well. So go to your local museum. If you get a chance to be in Greenville, definitely you want to come by and see us. In the meantime, I'm easy to reach through the museum, and I will answer all questions and take all callers. If you find yourself out in the field and you're in front of something that you don't understand, or you think maybe I might know a little something about. The good news is I have a broad team of people that I can draw experience from. So if
Wow.
I can't answer it, I can probably get you in front of the person that can, and they'll help you with your question. And it's always all very, very specific. When people have something in front of them, so we'll go back and forth. We'll work you to a point where you've either got the right answer or you know where to go get it.
Wow, that's fantastic. Ethan, we should put the website address in the chat and Tom's email address. Can we do
for
that,
sure.
brother? All right.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I put the website there in the chat before, but I'll put it down there again. And if you do go to the site, I noticed up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a menu where you can subscribe to the newsletter. Pretty simple process. Just enter your email. That sounds like an interesting thing. You
Beautiful site too.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. It's free, and you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, completely.
Beautifully designed and produced site too, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you hire a pro to do that?
We had a little help, but I will tell you the team is largely responsible for the look. And in addition to other things, many of us are fairly skilled at photography and content creation, and so it's like anything else. If you want to do it, you kind of have to put the show on yourself. But we're bringing it up, and we're going to be around for a while.
I put the email in there, info@sigalmusicsmuseum.org. Is that a good way to reach you?
That's a good way to reach me.
Perfect. Next time we'll figure out how we can do like a visual tour of the museum with a steady cam.
I would love to do that. I actually did that for the Piano Technicians Guild of Charlotte and Greenville here just earlier this week. So
awesome.
That goes well.
Let's get 200 or 300 people in there via that camera instead of 20. Okay.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you, guys.
So much.
I'll see you at Sigal.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time. Remember that you can catch us live online every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.
That's right. Go to pianotechradio.com to register so you can interact live and ask questions of our guests.
See you next week.